Hello, this is Dr. Garret Castleberry, Associate Professor and Program Director of Communication, Media, and Ethics at Mid-America Christian University. I'm here with a special guest interviewee as part of our COM 4603, Creating Social Media Presence and Cultural Movements interview series, where our students work hard each week to put together, compile their own unique interview protocols. We, of course, examine those, assess, provide feedback, and guide, if possible, everyone toward a place where we can ask some hopefully insightful, unique, and challenging questions that allow us to gain insight into various professional fields in which our students are potentially entering. I think one of the most dynamic and important aspects about a communication or communication adjacent degree is it's not only its interdisciplinary values, but its diversity in terms of professional development. Well, joining us, as we've previewed, as our students know, is Anna Kate Weichel, and she works as marketing specialist at MacU, and so she is newer to the university, but fortunately bringing a breath of fresh air in terms of some new ideas and practices, and just helping create an identity for the university in digital spaces. Anna Kate, it's great to have you with us. Would you like to maybe give us a couple of words about your background? Maybe remind us where you grew up, with the school, and so on. And it'll just kind of allow us to enter into a conversation. And I'll queue up some student questions after that point, and we'll just have a dialogue responding to these student questions today.
Perfect. Sounds good. So I'm Anna Kate Weichel. I grew up outside of Dallas. And when I graduated high school, I decided to go to the University of Oklahoma. So I was there for 3.5 years, and I studied journalism and I minored in communication. So throughout those years, I had internships, practicums, and I feel like I got to see a wide range of all the things you can do with a communication degree. And so I graduated in December of 2020, and then I came to work for MacU as a marketing specialist in January of 2021. So I've been here almost 6 months, and I've been loving it.
Well, excellent. It's been great to have you on board. And if our students are followers of any of MacU's primary channels on social media, you've had a hand in helping to cultivate that voice since you've come on board. And so we get to see a little bit, sample some of your abilities to represent organization. And I think at least one question does steer us in that direction, which is an important one, because our communication major, to provide broad context, once again, not only for yourself, but for audiences sitting in that might be asynchronously taking in this session later, our communication degree program has particular tiers of emphasis that could be distinct from other COM programs around the state or the country. We have a media studies focus, as well as a public relations focus, which of course is more all-encompassing than simply that traditional venue of public relations. We're looking at advertising, we're looking at brand management, we're exploring marketing in a number of fronts. And then the third tier of emphasis is social media, or social media studies, that is, as it's quickly becoming known. We're of course recognizing the social utility that the internet provides us, but increasingly it is essential for organizations to have what we call in the major a positive digital footprint, and you're helping to forge that in among your many duties at MacU. Well, if you will allow me, let me transition us, and I think I have an order that's going to create somewhat of an organic flow for us today. And so let me share our from inside within our D2L Desire to Learn page. I think let's have Savannah start us off with at least her first question, and we'll go from there.
Perfect.
Close that box. Oh, okay. What is going on? Hang on. That's funny. I have it too low, and so it's not. I'm gonna have to play it from back here, and then I can zoom in. All right, here we go.
Hi, my name is Savannah. This is my week three's interview questions for Anna Kate Weichel. So the first one I wanted to ask is, which area within your communication program benefited you the most? And the second is, can you describe your internship experience and the process of finding one? And in what ways did the internship benefit you?
All right. I've already forgot the first part of the question, but let's start with the internship. And you've had at least one, and one that we talked about a little bit. You had opportunity to intern under local congressman.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that process and how it may or may not have informed your educational experience at OU.
Definitely. So, first of all, I would just say to apply for everything, even if you feel like it might be out of your comfort zone, just go ahead and apply to anything and everything that you find interest in. That's kind of how I got to Congressman Ratcliffe's office. And it's one of those things where I wasn't sure how applicable it would be to my future in journalism or communication. But once I got into it, man, I mean, you learn so many just day-to-day communication skills with people calling in, having to write press releases. And I learned so much just from being able to be hands-on, but also shadowing some of the people who work there full time. And that's the kind of experience that I think is invaluable to internships and practicums and things like that. It was really helpful.
Excellent. Let's see if I can back up here and reset a little bit. I wanted to cut Savannah off too short. Let me start that question back over.
My week three's interview questions for Anna Kate Weichel. So the first one I wanted to ask is, which area within your communication program benefited you the most?
All right. So for you specifically, what area did you appreciate the most, or have you found value in when it came to that communication curriculum?
So at OU, when you go through the journalism program, you have print, online, and broadcast. And even if you know you want to be a print journalist, you still have to get experience throughout those three tracks, but also the other majors within the communication department. And I found that to be so helpful to be able to dip your toes into everything and get practice writing press releases or making an advertising mock-up. It was so helpful to be able to get at least some experience between each of the different majors or tracks or focuses. But I would say overall, it was most helpful with the digital space moving so often, to be able to learn about social media and how to apply that to your brand, your company, your news station, how to use it effectively. Those were some of the most helpful classes to me, especially. I mean, I'm just very thankful that the classes I was in were constantly evolving the curriculum to fit day to day what's actually going on.
Mhm. Oh, excellent. Up to date curriculum, very valuable. And students may not realize that at really large universities, it really, there's a lot of variation program to program. You have a lot of traditional faculty that maybe prefer a way that's if we want to call it that, comfortable for them, maybe for a long period of time. And so for younger students, it may not seem as relevant. All right, let me
Very
cue
true.
up Britton. I think this is a great direction to go next with our questions.
Hi, this is Britton Thaggard. I've got a couple of questions for Anna Kate Weichel. First, what was your favorite course while studying in the Gaylord School at OU?
All right. Do you have a favorite course memory or course at in the journalism program?
Okay, so I will say my practicum semester where I got to go out and do real experience, that was extremely helpful. But one of the first classes I took at Gaylord made you set up a media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as long also with a blog. And we were all freshmen. We were like, oh, this is so dumb. We have to keep up with this every week. Like every time we do a new
Mhm.
story, we have to post on all of them. But it ended up being one of the most beneficial things because it ends up being able to serve as a portfolio and shows all of your work after those 4 years. So it ended up being super helpful. And in that class, they also taught us do's and don'ts of posting your work, of how to tell a story. It was just really helpful. Going back to social media is constantly evolving. So it was good.
Excellent. And we have a similar introductory course. I appreciate that you added that detail. Our intro to CMC, computer mediated communication, and students are quested with putting together some very variational experience with different platforms. Our goal, our learning objective being that we're learning how to diversify our voice, right? Our written voice, our writerly voice, our what we could now call our social media voice. And it's different. It's different from the way we talk. It's different from the way we text. And a key stress point is repetition is essential to quality. That we're not perfect in the beginning, and we need that to get better, to grow more comfortable, to find our voice in some instances. And yes, this type of work is just as you say, it fits toward our larger goal in the major, which is to compile what we call a digital media portfolio that's going to help strengthen a job candidacy, but just give some repetition and diversity to what our students are working on. Let's return to Britton and catch his second question, which I think is right in the ballpark of what you've been sharing with us.
Um, and then second, what is the most interesting part of managing social media for MacU? Thanks. Looking
Oh,
forward to your answers.
all right. What has been most interesting with social media at MacU?
I would say the most interesting part is the constant changing, having to keep up with the new hashtags, viewing the demographics, looking at analytics, and being able to adjust what you were doing last week to fit the ever changing digital space. And I know I've said that a million times, but it really is always changing. And that's why it's so important to look at your analytics and see how your posts are doing to see, okay, maybe that didn't work. I should change that next week. And so I feel like that's been the most interesting side of it, to dive into the analytics and get more statistical with it. So.
This is fantastic. And what really excites me with your response here is it reminds me of some simultaneous values that we've been developing at MacU, which is we have our communication program. We have a sister program that it's not technically, or not this point, it housed in our same school, but the school business has a digital marketing program that we work very closely with, right? We have students that have cross interests and take cross curriculum. But on deck, a very new, very young program at MacU is data analytics. And it does, it is a much deeper dive into that statistics realm that you just teased for us. And that's one of those buzzwords that scares students, right? That's a term that people like to run from. They kind of fear the math involved. But I do think developing information literacy with regards to statistics, and maybe you don't know everything about how to perform stats, but your ability to read and assess that data is essential. And it's exciting to hear you make that connection for us, also as part of your role So what kinds of information, when you do a dive into exploring the social media data, what kinds of trends do you look for, or what catches your eye?
So we use the platform later for our scheduling, and it is nice. It has an analytics tab, so it collects all the data for us, and we can look at graphs, we can look at ourselves at the raw data, but it's really nice because it has it split up between how many likes it got, how many comments, shares, saves, so we can really engage with or see the engagement on each post. We can see the hashtag trends in our industry. We
Mhm.
can see what time our followers are on the app the most. We can see where they live, where they're from, men to women ratios. I mean, it just has a little bit of everything so that you're able to take that information and tailor it further to your audience. And that's what I really love the platform we're using right now, because it makes it, like you were saying, statistics can sound really scary, but like it breaks it down where you can just like take in bite-sized chunks and figure it out from step by step.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we've got some bite-sized chunks in the form of questions from this group. Let me queue up Marcia's. It starts a little soft. I think it's just a transitional thing, and then it's going to come in when she gets into the meat of her question.
Hello. My question this week is, being that you went to college on a big campus, what are some things that you think online college misses that you are able to attain with going to an actual bigger campus? Thank you.
All right. So Marcia's inquiring about maybe a little bit of comparison and contrast between larger universities or maybe smaller ones that simultaneously house online curriculum. We have a lot of online curriculum here, but as well as on ground. But Marcia is a full-time online student, so.
So I struggled a lot hearing this question because I come to MacU and I'm like, it looks like y'all have everything. You have the relationships with your professors. There's such camaraderie between the students, the student athletes, all there's nooks for everyone. I would just say, when I was a student at OU going to a big school, I had relationships with my professors, not all of them, but I had one or two where I was really close with them. I could go to them with everything. But the couple of times that I did take an online class, never talked to that professor. I was just literally turn in assignment, turn in assignment, turn in an assignment. But that's where I struggle with this, because I see here that even if it's online, it seems as though there's still that relationship. So I'm honestly just blown away by, I mean, I've only been here almost 6 months, but I have seen such great professor, all different types of relationships that have like flourished. So I'm sorry, Marcia, I'm not sure.
That's all right. And I think we had a guest last week that came from a smaller college and really spoke to the values, the takeaways of those. And it can, there are rewards no matter where you go, I think. And I think one of the most important things we can do, sort of talking to the students now, is learn what those are and embrace them, right? Embrace what's best about it. And when I was an undergrad, I went to a state school as opposed to a large, public university, and I maximized what was available to me there and then, and those people and those relationships and opportunities. And it gave me enough momentum that in a more advanced degrees and those pursuits, I was able to capitalize on being at large university settings in different ways. And so I think that's important. I think knowing your resources and being able to lean into those is gonna bring a lot of value. Thank you to Marcia and of course Anna Kate. Let's hear from Stephanie now. I think she just has a single question for us. Whoops.
So my question for week 3 discussion is, how did you learn how to separate your personal feelings from your professional opinions on topics that you were passionate or not so passionate about?
All right, maybe this question relates to journalism, right? And you had some undergrad experience in journalism, right? And maybe you could back up. You could tell us a little bit about what you got to be involved in, who you're writing for, that sort of thing. But it in some ways applies, I think, to the way you handle social media now for on behalf of an organization. Help thread the needle for us of being able to apply objectivity.
So I'll back up a little. When I was at the University of Oklahoma, I wrote for Gaylord News, and also was able to be on air and behind the scenes for OU Nightly, the student-run nightly newscast. And during that time and during my coursework, we had to take plenty of journalism ethics class. There were lots of conversations about subjectivity, objectivity. How do you deal with it? Because it really is such a hard topic. But the best advice I could give is to know when to separate it, especially on a journalism side. You're gonna want to be able to separate your feelings. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's definitely harder, but on more the communication social media side, I feel like you have to know what your brand values are, what they reflect. And once you have a good idea of that, you can know when is a good time for me to speak up, or when should I just hold my tongue on this. And I feel like that's why it's so important to understand where you're working, what the culture is like, because I feel like that gives a good indicator of whether, no matter how passionate you are about it, whether to speak up or let it go this time. Oh, I can't hear you.
That's a great point. One of the things that reminds me of, no matter the setting you're working in, is to always remember and remind ourselves, for every majority opinion we believe maybe the room has, whether or not we fit into that category, there's likely someone in the room that has the opposite view on a given topic or subject, and that doesn't make them the antagonist to your protagonist. It just speaks to cognitive diversity and maybe just adjustments in personal values, and we can work through that. And I think if we're aiming to create warm culture environments in our workspaces, it's going to better serve us. It's going to help encourage the best out of everyone.
Definitely.
All right. Let's see. Tyler. I've got Tyler ready, queued up, and he has a pair of questions, but I'll definitely try to give this a pause in the middle so we can kind of spend a little time with each.
Hey, thank you so much for joining our class. My name is Tyler Weichel, and I am currently in my 4th year here at Mid-America, and I'm really excited for this week as you answer some of our questions and as you really just dive into the topics of today and the questions that we really have and the needs that we're really seeing. And so I'm just going to start off. I have 2 questions for you, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. My first question is, could you please describe how you continue to navigate the ever-changing media platforms? And so media platforms change consistently and change all the time. There's always up-and-coming platforms. So how do you manage this as someone in your position? And then,
all right, you said it yourself earlier. Media is changing all the time. How do you keep up with the flow?
So definitely, I'm always learning. I feel like there's always more that you can dive into and find out about a certain platform or algorithms. And so I like to attend workshops. I like to watch Instagram reels. I like to go straight to the source of their privacy policies and be able to read through them. And I feel like that's the best way to keep an open mind about things and be willing to continue to learn. No matter how old you are, what your position is, if things are changing, you got to keep up with them and keep learning. So
it could be devastating news to receive as a senior, right? Wait,
I
you're
know,
telling me
sorry.
I got to keep reading? I need to keep learning. I can't.
Hey.
Certainly one of the messages we try to push forward is that lifelong having the working on mitigating an identity of a lifelong learner is going to do us more good than harm, because what we can anticipate as much as people stay the same, technology, ideas, practices will continuously evolve. And I think the more open we are to being in the flow rather than resisting it, it will aid us in the long run. All right, let's return to Tyler.
Secondly, how has the pandemic changed your job and how have you continued to navigate those challenges? So I can't wait to hear your feedback. And I just thank you again for joining myself and the rest of my classmates this week. Thank you.
So I would have to say, I mean, I started this job in January, so it wasn't at the peak of COVID, but even just applying it to finishing up my schoolwork and partly in this job is adapting and evolving and being able to learn new skills once again to adapt and be able to continue on and not just stop posting, stop doing anything, stop holding events. You got to keep going and figure out how to be innovative in a new way to be able to keep the show going.
Absolutely. And I think Matthew, we've kind of patted ourselves on the back tons and tons of times, but one of the speaking to our audience, I mean, one of the great blessings when the pandemic did occur was we had so many tools in place and we had such a culture of working with students and sort of practicing different modalities of flexibility that we didn't lose a lot of momentum that the way, say, some locations did. I'm thinking of maybe even a community colleges that just may not have been fully equipped to kind of handle what was a massive migration into a digital realm. And I think locations and even classes and projects that allow us to bend more to new opportunities are they have hidden benefits.
Definitely, I have to agree, and that just goes along with having to evolve with the digital space. I mean, there's definitely a theme or two here.
Absolutely. But and hint, right, for our students, they'll be working on an interview synthesis paper a little bit later on, and so we're trying to give them some notes to take, some things to remember here. Well, hopefully Megan can spark some things to remember. Let's hear from her. Oh, whoops! If I can, if the screen's too low, it won't let me move it and hit the play button. And spacebar is not working within Zoom.
My questions for the interview this week are, with cancel culture at its peak, how stressful is it to work in social media management? And
all right, this gets into the conversation of digital media ethics, right? This idea that I'm going to relay it to your work when you're handling social media, things like that, or even our private practices online that we're in an increasingly sensitive culture. What are some ways that you navigate that?
I would just say, especially with cancel culture being so relevant, and I feel like there's someone new every day who's getting canceled. I just try and stay in my own lane and focus on if it's being affected through the social media pages, platforms that I'm running. And if not, I try not to say anything about it because, oh my goodness, I feel as though they're just popping up left and right. And it's just good to not be involved, in my opinion. And I mean, if something were to happen within some of the pages I run, I feel like then it becomes a PR issue of apologizing, getting that out as quickly as possible, and making it actually have feeling and emotion and sincerity to it. So thankfully, I've not had to deal with that, and I'm going to try and to avoid that forever.
You remind me of something I think is important, which is I'm noticing in this era we're in, there are even some people that out there, and I'm thinking of like, celebrities and entertainers or professional athletes or politicians. These are kind of the big guns here, but there is such a thing as not apologizing the right way, right? Like
Yes.
haphazardly creating a response that might get you into deeper water.
Definitely. I've seen that play out one too many times. And luckily, I haven't been involved, but I can take notes and kind of learn from, oh, that's not such a good way to go about that, huh?
Absolutely.
So,
And maybe even more so important for us as we're communication scholars, whether we're going into something like digital journalism or social media management or public relations, because this is going to be a huge part of your public relations identity, is when we see these events unfold, and everything doesn't have to become a classroom. I get it. There's times in life we just want to shut it off. We want to just leave me some sacred space, some personal space to relax. But for us, if this is our calling, if this is a discipline that we're buying into professionally, if we want to stay in it very long for very many years, learning how to not just take these events in as like, oh, they're my entertainment, like we used to pick up like the tabloid magazines at the front of a supermarket, but instead, every time you see, think strategically, like, okay, what is happening in this situation? What can I glean from it? And then how can I apply it to my own circumstances? Not that we're living exaggerated lives like some of these public figures, but how do I help better represent, I don't know, the organization I'm working with, or, you know, what we call the stakeholders of the organization, maybe how we interact, because perhaps as a social media handler, in some aspects of your role or roles, you're engaging a little bit with the, we're not going to call them an audience here, but the followers, right? The users, the fans, the stakeholders that are interested enough to engage.
definitely. I've seen that time and time again. And I think it's funny how you're saying the tabloid magazine, we used to just be able to pick it up, but now it's a learning experience. Well, I find myself going home after work, getting on social media. I'm like, oh, that's a smart idea for a caption, or I really like the way this post was laid out. And so I just feel like it never shuts off, especially in the communication realm. It can be applied anywhere, and you can learn from a lot of things, either what to do or good ideas, or maybe so much what not to do. So.
Absolutely. The best of times, the worst of times. Okay, Megan has a part 2 for us. Let's get back to her.
And how much of your knowledge from college courses have been applicable in the real world so far?
All right. Sometimes we get into conversations about whether or not students feel like they're finding enough value in a given curriculum or course. Talk to us a little bit about what aspects of your college curriculum translated for you, and maybe even parts that didn't.
Okay, so I feel like one thing the Gaylord College did really well was implement getting real world experience. They're going to make you, and like I talked about earlier, dip your toes into all aspects of communication, whether that be writing an advertising mock-up or doing a PR press release. You would be able to at least try out each part. But even I was a broadcast journalism major. So my junior and senior year, we would have to go out on a Tuesday afternoon, let's say, and turn a whole story within 3-ish hours. So we would need to find someone to, well, I guess first of all, pitch a story, get that approved, go find someone to interview, get it all together, do your stand up, and then edit it all together and have it ready for the newscast by 4 p.m. So I hated that class so much. It was so hard, but I can't say enough. Like, it gave such good real life experience that I can't hate it as much as I thought I was in the moment, because it really does. It's those things where you get those experiences. They will help you further down the line. I would also say I've had some friends who maybe have been in programs that don't do as much real life experience. But I feel like if you're hungry for it, you go out and do it yourself. Like over the summers, I would go out and do my own news stories when I wasn't in call or like in classes. So the experiences are out there. You just have to be able to want to go get them as well. So I feel like that's kind of two-sided.
This isn't a question that was submitted, but I've heard these types of questions come up in conversation with students. How much we're in a place where there's heightened competition for jobs, but there's no shortage either of people looking for labor, looking for content, right? To use that industry term. How much should students feel willing to engage in creating content for a source that perhaps at low cost or even no cost? Do you have experience in that area?
So I guess it was the summer I was actually doing my Congressman Ratcliffe internship at no pay. I was reading a book called The Defining Decade, and it's about life advice throughout your 20s. It's written by a psychologist. And one of the stories that has stuck with me is a girl would, or a lady would work at a barista shop, being a coffee barista, and she would make, like, let's say $7 an hour minimum wage. And she was going to her therapist asking, like, this isn't fulfilling me. I want to do something in the creative space, but all the internships I can get right now are at no pay. And long story short, she ends up switching to a no pay internship at a company she adores. Their values align. And within 6 months, she's hired, she's working there full time. But the whole point of the story is, sometimes you just have to invest your time and get that experience. And it makes it so much easier to climb up in the company or in the industry once you have some of that experience and you're willing to trade off for a little tester or seeing how it works out.
That is a great story with a really important lesson and a fantastic tie-in to questions we've been engaging throughout this course. Wonderful. Well, I have Seth here, and Seth's going to bring us home. I believe he has at least one question, perhaps two.
Hello, Ann and Kate Weichel. My name is Seth Crowder, and I have a couple questions for you. What is the work environment like at MacU? And my second question is, can you tell us what your main goal is for marketing the university? Thank you. Hello, Ann and Kate.
All right. So what's it called? A whistleblower moment opportunity. I'm just kidding. So tell us a little bit. Some of these students, very rarely have they ever been on our campus. And so it's a great opportunity to learn, maybe hear about the environment, and then maybe any plans that you have in play for how you'd like to see its marketing culture evolve.
Okay, so coming in January, I was obviously nervous, new group of people, but everyone here coming into this culture, everyone is so friendly. Even with masks on and having to social distance, everyone wants to stop and talk. Everyone wants to get to actually know you. And I also do photography for MacU. And so I'll go to the student events, I go to the athletic events, and I see the camaraderie between students, between professors, between the campus pastor. They all actually know and care about each other. And so that made my transition into this job a lot easier because everyone was just ready with open arms to welcome another one into the MacU family. So that was extremely helpful throughout that time of transition. But also with the MacU marketing, one of my main goals is MacU has such a diverse campus between online and on-campus students of race, culture, age, so many different variances that I try my best. And that's like one of my goals is to promote that and show this is a home for everyone. And I guess it kind of goes back to the first part. We want to be here with open arms to welcome anyone and everyone, no matter who you are, what you are, all of that. So
excellent. What a wonderful place to stop, to pause there, and kind of bring things to a close. thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. It's a busy schedule, just as you described. No, working in marketing, you can go around the clock if you let it happen. But if you're passionate enough, as you say, as you report to us, there's opportunity to always learn something, and that's only going to kind of fertilize success in the long run. And Kate, we appreciate your time. Thank you again. This was fantastic. And for our students in the class, we are rounding, I don't know, rounding the bases. I don't want to mix metaphors here, but we're moving past the midpoint in the course and looking forward to additional opportunities to engage and learn from others. This is an exciting edition, and I know that these responses spoke directly to questions that you all have raised, and not just in the context of this course, but in the context of our senior capstone and talking about what's next in trying to craft visions for our own individual plans as young professionals, or at least professionals new to certain arenas. So hopefully you'll take time, process these, take some notes, right? Jot down some ideas. There's plenty of value in what we heard here today, and we'll look forward to engaging in future sessions for our guest interview series in COM 4603, Creating Social Media Presence and Cultural Movements.